Finding the equation of a line perpendicular to another line. Remember, if two lines are perpendicular, then they're going to have opposite reciprocal slopes. So what we mean by that is that if one slope is, say, 2/3, then the line perpendicular to that has to have a slope of -3/2. So you take the reciprocal and the opposite sign. So it says, find the line that contains the point -2, 5 and is perpendicular to a line with a slope of 1/2. So our point is -2, 5, and our slope, m, is going to be, well, we want it to be perpendicular to a line with a slope of 1/2. So if we take the reciprocal of that, we get 2/1. And then we have to take the opposite as well. So it's -2/1. And -2/1 is just -2. So we want a line with the point -2, 5. So we'll label that x1 and y1. And a slope of -2. So we use our point slope form. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then plug in our values. Y minus y1 is 5 equals m, which is -2, times x minus x1, which is -2. Change our subtraction to the addition of the opposite, so we get y, and then minus +5 turns into plus -5 equals -2 times x, and then minus -2 turns into plus a +2. Then we distribute. So y plus -5 equals -2x plus -4. And then finally, to get rid of this -5, we have to add 5 to both sides. So that gives us y equals -2x plus -4 plus 5 is +1. Alright, so let's go ahead and just check that one right now. So first off, let's make sure that it's perpendicular. So we wanted it to be perpendicular to a line with slope of 1/2, which means it has to have opposite reciprocal slope. And we said that the opposite reciprocal slope was -2, and our equation does have a slope of -2. So it's definitely perpendicular. Now we want to check to make sure that it contains the point -2, 5. So we plug it in. And remember, this is our x and our y. So we've got y equals -2x plus 1. Y is 5, so 5 equals -2 times x, which is -2 plus 1. So 5 equals -2 times -2 is +4 plus 1. So 5 equals 5. And that does check. Alright, so number 2. Find the line that contains the point 4, -2 and is perpendicular to 4x plus 3y equals -6. So they've given us our point, and our point is 4, -2. So that's our x1, y1 point. The equation they've given us, we want a line that's perpendicular to that. So the first thing we're going to have to do is take 4x plus 3y equals -6. And we want to put this in slope-intercept form so that we know what the slope of this equation is. So the first thing we do is subtract 4x from both sides. That's going to give us 3y equals -4x. And then I'll just write this as plus -6. Next thing we have to do is divide each term by 3, and that will give us y equals -4/3 x plus negative 2. Now remember, this is in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So the slope of this equation is negative 4 over 3. And we want the opposite reciprocal of that. So m equals, first take the reciprocal, that would be 3/4. And then we want the opposite of a negative, which is a positive. So we're going to keep it positive 3/4. Alright, so now we're ready to use our point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And now we plug in our values. So y minus y1 is negative 2 equals m, which is 3/4 times x minus x1, which is 4. Now we change our subtraction to addition to the opposite. So we get y, and then minus negative 2 turns into plus positive 2 equals 3/4 times x, and then minus a positive 4 turns into plus a negative 4. Now we want to distribute. So we get y plus 2 equals 3/4 x plus. Now off to the side here, I can write, this is going to be 3/4 times negative 4, which is really negative 4 over 1. The 4's are going to cancel, and what I'm left with is the 3 and the negative. So that's just going to be negative 3. Okay, so now I need to subtract 2 from both sides. That gives me y equals 3/4 x plus, and then negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. And then finally, this plus negative, I need to turn back to subtraction. So y equals 3/4 x minus 5. And then the last thing I should do is check it. Now the first thing is that I knew that my original equation, it says, and is perpendicular to 4x plus 3y equals negative 6. And when we put that in slope-intercept form, we got this right here, which is y equals negative 4/3 x plus negative 2. And we said that the opposite reciprocal of that was 3/4. And now when I look at my answer, my slope is 3/4. So this is definitely perpendicular to that equation. The only thing left to check is that the point 4, negative 2 is on this line. So remember, this is my x and this is my y. So I plug it in. We've got y equals 3/4 x minus 5. Y is negative 2. So negative 2 equals 3/4 times 4 minus 5. And now I'm just going to make sure that the right-hand side equals negative 2. So in the calculator, I'm going to remember to put my fraction in parentheses. So parenthesis 3 divided by 4, parenthesis, and then parenthesis 4, parenthesis, and then minus 5. Enter. And I get negative 2. And it checks.